evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest instalment of your Gersnet Weekly Podcast, hosted by myself, Craig Gray. It's the independent Rangers podcast made for fans, by fans, and all of our content is always free. You can get us over at gersnet.co.uk on the forum, where there's lots of good content up on the website, a few articles, one written this week as well, and obviously the podcast here. You can get us over on Twitter at Gersnet online as well, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, just need to give a message from our sponsors, who are Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years, and we're absolutely delighted that they're backing our podcast. You can get them over at forrestprecisioneng.com, and you can also visit the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand. And for information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Well, it's done. It's finished. He's gone. He's out. The 18th manager of Rangers Football Club is no more. And we're going to dissect it all tonight, ladies and gentlemen. First off, to introduce my guests. First of all, Mr. Colin Armstrong. Colin, you're making your long-awaited return today. What a time to do it in. A nice wee, strip in the back you've got there as well.
Yeah, always looking to the future, Craig, trying to be positive. The only other time I've been in the pod this season was the first game of the season when we got beat off Kilmarnock, so maybe we need to stop scheduling me on the pod altogether. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe if I stay clear, the Rangers will start winning again. But yeah, it's just, it is what it is. We're back where we are. We're almost a year to the day since Gio went, what was it, 11 months ago now? It just feels like a repetitive cycle, but hopefully Mr. Davis will keep us going in the interim period.
Yeah, hopefully. And our guest as well, Mr. Gary Valentine. Gary, how you doing, mate?
I'm not bad, if you take away what's happening with Rangers, I'm pretty good at the moment.
Aye, but I suppose I've ended the week on a high with some good news, so do you know what I mean? All those roses in the garden.
Sunday could be the start of the week, it depends on how you look at it.
I suppose. I'll always say the end, but there you go. It's all about opinions, and we're definitely going to get into them tonight. Colin, I'll start with you. I mean, I said before, I never bothered to do an agenda tonight just because I didn't feel there was any point. I think it's better just to have a sort of big discussion. And, I know everybody's angry and negative and all that at the moment, and fair enough, you've got every right to be, but it's just kind of just scuttled and speechless, do you know what I mean? It's like that performance yesterday, you could kind of tell that something like that was going to come and just, spiral into complete and utter chaos, and that is what happened yesterday. Just horrific performances recently. Nobody knew what Michael Beale was doing. We had that run of games there, obviously before Saturday, and I tried to be a wee bit positive, but I think we all knew in our heart of hearts that this was going to come eventually.
Yeah, it's been coming. Don't get me wrong, of late, was it 4 or 5 games we went on a winning streak there, and not conceding a goal and all that kind of stuff. But it felt it had to go on an incredible run to appease the doubters within the support. I felt even if he'd went on a 10, 12 game run, if we hadn't made any inroads on in Celtic during that run, the next defeat would have started it all off again. And he's kind of made a rod for his own back here. It's of his own doing. When he came in last year, I think he settled the ship. Performances improved. I thought he bought well in the January window. I thought Raskin and Cantwell were 2 good deals. I thought they played really well for the remainder of the season, and it just kind of felt that the foundation was there to build on and push on in January. We all knew this rebuild was coming. But it's just been a disaster. The recruitment has been a disaster, especially in the forward areas. And watching that team yesterday, we were sort of saying before we came on air, I don't look forward to going to Ibrox anymore. The football this season it's turgid. It's awful. That's one of the problems Beale's created for himself. I think there is just no identity with this team. You don't know what it is he's trying to do. As I said, the players he's signed, especially in the forward areas, I just don't know what he was trying to do. I just, like, Dessers just doesn't look like the type of striker that we needed. Lammers, I actually think Lammers is technically quite a good football player. He's got a tidy touch and good movement and all the rest of it, but he's never struck me as the type of player that we were needing in particular, and I don't know where he would sit in the system that we try and play. Cifuentes, I was saying this yesterday, we've sent Lowry to Hearts. Cifuentes it's very early on in his Rangers career, but he just strikes me as another midfielder that takes the easy, sensible. There's nothing in there there's no risk taking. There's no sort of let's try and play a nice pass between the full back and the centre half and get the defence's turn. There's none of that. It's all side to side. And my son actually, like yesterday, we were sitting, and it was like Gio all over again. It was at a horseshoe. So he was like, this is going to go for Tav, to Golson, to Davies, to Borna, and then back at that whole, and that's for about 3 or 4 times. That's all it done, and it was just, in fact, it was Ridvan at that point because it was the first half, and then you see the depth of Beale's sort of tactical genius in this whole thing. His big change at half time is to bring on Borna because obviously he's looking for more aerial balls into the box. So it's just been poor. I mean, and even the players he signed in January who were good buys, their forms fell off a cliff this season as well. I mean, other than Servette away, I think Raskin's been honking. Cantwell hasn't reached the levels that he reached last season. I think he's been getting played out of position, but he's still not looked anywhere near the player that we'd bought towards the end of last season. So it's all on Beale. It's his downfalls of his own making. But there's also questions got to be asked about the board and other people within the club because, as I put a tweet out yesterday saying, if you're in a repetitive cycle of making appointment after appointment after appointment and they can't fix it, then there's something wrong further up the tree, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there in terms of it is entirely Beale's fault. It is of his own making this. He's a man, I don't want to maybe get any personal jibes or anything like that, but, I think character's a big thing, and you can tell with a lot of people, he did seem to be just somebody who would make stuff up. And to be fair, I don't actually mind that in some managers before, like maybe play mind games or this, that, and the next thing, if there is a thought process behind it, or, it results in something good. But it just seemed like Beale was making stuff up, like, just because he didn't know what to say, and I did a few deals with press conferences and it was okay, I suppose, to deal with, but the guy just felt as if he was talking for no reason.
He contradicted himself a few times, I think. There was someone posted a comment today that I saw, and it was about the boy Rice, and he was saying, he's only 17, we need to protect him, blah, 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 give him game time. And then when he's needing a goal, he's chucking on Loveless. And I mean, the atmosphere was toxic yesterday. I'm not entirely sure what that boy got out of that experience yesterday of coming on, because within 2 minutes of him coming on, Aberdeen get the third, and the ground it's half empty and it's toxic. So I'm not exactly sure that chucking that boy on done. If anything, I think that doesn't help his sort of future development. So he does. He's contradicted himself. He talks about doing one thing and then does something totally different. So yeah, he's. I just wonder if the job was too big for him. I think Michael Beale would. There was all this talk about him being the brains behind the Steven Gerrard thing, and I don't necessarily think that there isn't any truth in that, because it certainly felt that when Beale left Villa, that Villa's form fell off a cliff and Gerrard struggled a wee bit there. But it's a different job being a number two and being the tactician and all the rest of it, and being the guy that builds a game plan and all that kind of stuff. It's a big thing to stand in front of a group of primed athletes who are all full of testosterone and got high opinions of themselves and drill that message into them. And I just don't know if Beale's got that in him. You know what I mean? That's what I wonder about. Would he inspire me? If I was sitting in a dressing room putting the boots on to go and play for him, would he inspire me? I don't know. And to me, that's the difference between a leader and a sort of number two, a tactician. And I just wonder if Beale's not got that. He's not got that characteristic in his makeup. And so where he was before is probably what he's best doing.
No, absolutely. Gary, I mean, I don't like to, look at fans and stuff like that, but we need to be honest with ourselves here. We all wanted him in, right? So, I mean, you'll probably get some, the I told you so people and all that, which is like, you always get that. But we all seem to want Gio in that field. We all seem to want Michael Beale in that field. So, I think as a fan base, we need to have a look at ourselves as well and, say, maybe, the type of people that we're wanting to bring in is not the right type of people because it's no work 2 times in a row. Who's going to be making the decisions on, the boardroom level to actually bring in a new manager when it does eventually happen, and even then it's like, is there going to be a director of football? What's happening with this sort of process as well that we seem to still be evaluating? So the whole thing at the moment, everything's just really, really bad, isn't it?
It's no great. As for who the fans are, I think as fans we can have opinions and people can maybe attach to the club. I think there's certainly a bit of nostalgia with Van Bronckhorst because of the player he was. I think there's a bit of favour for Beale because you could say we were kind of successful when he was there previously. But at the end of the day, it's not the fans that pick the manager. It's the board and the chief executive and whoever else it might be, director of football at the time. But we need to learn from mistakes because, as you say, we've had 2 managers there that have pretty much been carbon copies of each other, steadied the ship a wee bit, and then when they've had their own kind of run at a pre-season and whatever, it's just not worked. I was thinking earlier that I generally 9:20 I came down the stairs there after putting my wee boy down to sleep and seen the news that my phone was like red hot, everybody texting me and whatever, and I'm thinking to myself, my wee boy's just turned 2 and this is the 4th manager that Rangers are going to have. I was 13 when Rangers got their 4th manager, and my boy's also seen us win the league and be in a European final in the space of 25 months, and it's just bizarre how we're in this situation because there's plenty of positives that have happened, but there's a hell of a lot of mistakes that we just don't seem to learn from. And I really hope that whoever the next guy is that comes in, we've really done our homework and it's a guy that's best for the job rather than a friend like people have been in the past, or somebody that's favoured just because he's got some kind of connection at the club, because we really, really need to get this right. Because as I tweeted yesterday, I think it was at full time, I says, I like Beale like I did Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. I says, but I like winning trophies better. And that's the thing that we need to get back to doing, because we've not done it for a long, long time. And I keep saying it every time I'm on this, we've won 2 trophies in 12 years. That is not good enough for Rangers. That's on par with St Johnstone. That's where we are at the minute. We really, really need to get this right, because I'm sick of seeing Celtic winning league after league, treble after treble.
No, you're spot on, mate. Do you know what, in terms of maybe positives, I've said this earlier, what an opportunity this is for somebody though, in terms of, look at Steve Davis, for example, Colin. I like the guy. I love the guy. He's my favourite player, if he still is a player. I don't know. But, he's a leader. He's, got all the characteristics I said earlier on Twitter. He's, he embodies everything that a Ranger should be. He's confident. He's a hard worker. He's humble. He's down to earth. And for me, I think we could do a lot worse than him at the moment. The options out there are, not great, really, in terms of free agents and stuff like that. And I think something I want to say as well is that maybe as a fan face, our expectations of who we are going to bring in is too high. People keep saying, we shouldn't get a project manager. We don't need another project manager. The reality is that is the market that we are in. We can only get a project manager. And, the days of us attracting the best talent, players and management are long gone. And even Graham Potter, right, I'll just use him as an example because he seems to be the sort of, the realistic, unrealistic target, if that kind of makes sense. But Graham Potter was on 10 million quid a year at Chelsea. And he's still getting paid out by them at the moment. Do you know what I mean? And it's even if Graham Potter loved Rangers, wanted to go to Rangers, thought they're a big club, this, that, and the next thing, it wouldn't even be him that made the decision, because he'll have an agent there, he'll have people working for him that will be saying there's a minimum salary threshold and expectation that you've got to get. And there's no way, on earth that we're ever going to get anywhere close to that and break the bank for a guy. But even with him, someone like Potter, he is still technically a project manager, even if, we could somehow manage to lure him, because let's face it, the guy hasn't won anything really, has he? I mean, he done all right in Sweden and stuff like that, but, he failed at Chelsea. He done well at Brighton, to be fair to him, but he still didn't, win anything with them. So, it's a market that we're in, unfortunately. But what a great opportunity for whoever it is, Colin. I think within the space of 2 months, or even if it is Davis right now and he continues a bit longer, in the space of 2 months, you can already have a trophy in the bag and you're a winner straight away. That can do wonders for someone. So, I think that's kind of my take on it. What's your thoughts on, Davis coming in and the new sort of teaming that's been put in place?
I mean, first of all, we've got to congratulate him. It must mean a lot. I mean, he's obviously a Rangers man. I also think it'll be a big thing for, his wider community in Northern Ireland. We bring a huge support for that part of the world. And to my knowledge, I don't think we've ever had anyone picking the team for Rangers that's came from Northern Ireland. So, as I said, lots of supporters come over there. It'll be good for them coming over, knowing that it's sort of one of their own that's picking the team now. As you say, he's the embodiment of a Ranger for me. He's a class act, really, as a person and as a player. And so I hope he does well. And who knows, he might do well enough for the board to consider him for the permanent post. If he does well enough, I wouldn't mind that. One thing I think Davis will do, he'll maybe bring a bit more unity, because Ibrox is toxic at the moment. It's just, as I said earlier on, I don't enjoy going to the games at the moment. The football's poor, the atmosphere's toxic, and you were just waiting on it turning yesterday. You know what I mean? We started well. Dessers missed that chance. I thought Seamer should have maybe scored with that header that he had as well. We've had 2 or 3 chances to score, not taking them, and then you could just feel it round about the 20 minutes mark, the crowd starting to turn and all the rest of it. And it just feels like no one in that ground is behind the guy in the dugout anymore. And that makes it a really enjoyable experience going to football. Like after the game yesterday, I went down the Paisley Road West, went into the Viceroy for a pint to watch the Liverpool Spurs game. And like, Liverpool are another team that went through a big rebuild and all the rest of it. They've got ready half their team, but certainly their whole midfield and a couple of new forwards and all that kind of stuff. They were down to 9 men, and you could see that wee pocket of supporters were so behind already. Even after that major rebuild, they're buying into the new players that have come in. Obviously, they've bought into Klopp a long time ago, but you could just sense the sort of togetherness. Even although they were down to 9 men, you still felt they were capable of getting a result, and they were unlucky not to get a result. And I think that's what we need. We need someone who's going to come in, whether it be Davis now or whoever comes in next. The first priority is to get everybody on side. You know what I mean? To give us a type of football that we find entertaining, that we're going to buy into, because I don't think we've had that for a while. You know what I mean? It's been hard work going to Ibrox, even under Gio. I mean, I know the European final in Europe, we were a joy to watch. Even in that time, domestically, we were horrible to watch. You know what I mean? It was a really difficult watch. So that's what I want to see first. I want to start enjoying going to Ibrox again. You know what I mean? And then that's the foundation that you get buy-in for the support. That means, the fans, the players, the manager are all sort of connected, all with this sort of feeling that they're, going in the same direction. And then trophies should ultimately follow after that. That's coming in and saying I'm going to win trophies, that's fine. But I think there's stages you have to go through in achieving that. And I think the first thing the person that comes in needs to do is just unite everyone so that we get behind them. And I think Davis, to be fair, is capable of doing that, just because of who he is and how he conducts himself. I think even if he doesn't get the results that we all want, if we see an improvement in performances and there's just a general feeling that we're heading in the right direction, I think the majority of supporters will be happy. But in terms of the longer term replacement, the days of, like, I grew up when Rangers were going to Dundee United to try and get Jim McLean, or Aberdeen to try and get Alex Ferguson. Those days are gone. There isn't a huge amount of Scottish managers out there that you can think of. I did notice Duncan Ferguson got off to a good start yesterday with Inverness Cally Thistle, and again, he was up at the supporters, they're all behind him, and I thought, that looks pretty good, but I mean, it's very early to sort of consider him, but I mean, it's, as you say, the manager thing is just, I don't have a huge knowledge on who's available, what they do, and all the rest of it. That's down to the club. They should be gathering information of who's out there. They should have a vision of what they want to do, and I just don't think they've had that in the past. I don't think the football side of the club is well run at the moment. As you say, there's no director of football. There just doesn't seem to be a clear vision in terms of what we want to do. That's the longer term vision. Davis is in the short term. I think he'll sort of keep us, chugging along, so to speak. But the longer term vision, it needs to be. We keep on hearing it's going to be data based. I don't see any evidence of that. I don't see any evidence of a vision on the park, because every single player that's been signed this summer, I mean, Dessers looked to me as a secondary striker in a 4-4-2. He doesn't look to me like a lone striker. He's not mobile enough. I mean, he simply can't move about enough. As I said, Lammers is the same. Technically, I think he looks like a decent player, but I don't know where he fits into our system. That's what we need to decide, how we want to play the game and take it from there. And that's on the board, Bisgrove, all the rest of it, to sit down and plan what their vision is, and then find the right people who are going to implement that vision. Yeah,
I mean, Gary, I was thinking about this earlier when Davis was announced. I mean, two of the most successful managers in Rangers history, Walter Smith and Alec McLeish, were sort of, I would maybe say uninspiring appointments at the time. People think Walter Smith is fair enough coming in for the last couple of games of the season to, try and win the league and whatnot. But I think generally speaking, the fans expected a bigger name, same with Alec McLeish. And they two went on to be legends. So, I mean, I'm starting to get those kind of feelings again where you're like, Stephen Davis kind of came out of left field. He's not someone who, I said earlier, I didn't think of him automatically as somebody that could have done it. But I think one thing that's for sure is that the board are going to take their time over this. And then it kind of becomes like a dilemma, because if Davis is doing well, say for example, it gets to like December, January time, and we've won most games, we've won the League Cup, we've at least, clawed back some of the deficit on Celtic, we've progressed in Europe. If he's doing a good job and he's already won a trophy, it'd be a bit difficult to turn down and tell him that he can't stay until the end of the season at least. So, it'll be a dilemma if that does happen, and hopefully that can happen and he can have success. But I said to Colin earlier, I think we could do a lot worse than someone like him, and it might sound like I'm coming across like a Rangers Dan in the sense that he's somebody that knows the club, he gets it, this, that, and the next thing. But to be fair, I kind of think that is what we need just now. There's not very many people out there that are available that know Rangers. Stephen Davis has worked under Walter Smith and Alan McCoist, two of the biggest legends that this club has ever had. He's also worked under Stephen Gerrard, who is a leader. And Stephen Davis is a leader as well. He's also surrounded himself with guys that know the standards of the club as well. Guys like Stevie Smith, Alec Ray, Colin Stewart's obviously been there for a while as well. So I'm actually really excited about this, mate. What's your thoughts on the new team, Gary?
A couple of things. I think Jimmy Nicholl, he's picked the team before Colin. So
yes. There you go.
I can understand why you forgot about that, because it was a hell of a time to be a Rangers supporter.
I can't believe I forgot about the 5 each game with Hibs, to be honest with you.
Anyway, so I lost my point, my train of thought there. See the thing with Stephen Davis, I totally get it. I think it's a reasonable short-term appointment, but what we need to do is keep our options open. So, for example, if he comes in and wins, for talk's sake, 10 games. It was his first 10 games. We win the League Cup. I don't even know when the final of that is, right? But if we were to do that, but the games weren't great and it was scraping by and whatever, then you've still got to say, is he the right man? But if he comes in and turns us into this machine that you can actually look at the team and say, I know what he's doing there, and the team know what they're doing, because at the moment, I don't know what your system is meant to be. I don't know what the tactics are meant to be. And the one thing when Gerrard was there and it wasn't going great was you could see what he was trying to do. And it was just a matter of clicking. But with Beale, I didn't see it. With Gio, I didn't see it. And that's all I think we need for Davis if he's going to be... if he's going to have a chance of getting the job permanently. But he really needs it. It's not just a case of steadying the ship if he wants the job. He's got to, as I said, do something that's going to make everybody like proper impressed. Because winning games at Rangers domestically isn't really a difficult thing. It's just kind of like you could win 10 games in a row and then get beat for Celtic. You know what I mean?
I think we've got to maybe calm our ambitions here in terms of what Davis can do, because we have to remember he's working with the same group of players, and we've just acknowledged that these players, the ones that have come in anyway, just aren't good enough. So, you know, I just want to see an improvement in performances. I want to see an improvement in the style of football we're playing. I think Beale has put us in a position where we're actually worse off than we were this time last season. He's brought in players. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not convinced that Sakala was good enough for Rangers. Scored goals and all the rest of it, but at that top level, especially in the Champions League a couple of times, he looked a bit, well off it. Same with Cholak, good striker who scored goals, but I just never ever got the impression that he was what we needed. You would have to say we've got rid of them and replace them with players who are actually worse. So you have to be realistic in terms of what can Stephen Davis do. He might be the guy. We might have got rid of this conductor, but the guy that he's passing the baton on has still got the same orchestra to play with. You know what I mean? That's the issue. I know there's loads of players that are injured, but I just don't see middle to front that there's enough creativity. I'm not convinced we're winning the League Cup, by the way. I think Hearts.
Don't, Colin, come on.
No. One thing, we're not in the final yet. It's a semi-final, right? So, and also, teams can smell blood. They can. Aberdeen came here yesterday knowing they could get a result. Right. I know that the guy behind that is gone, but we still have the players, and that's it. There's just not enough creativity in that team, in my opinion, to get goals, and I think I still think it could be a long, long season. You know what I mean? I think the
season's done. There's no chance we're winning the league. I can't see us winning the league. I've seen people today suggesting on Twitter and stuff. Well, it's not done. We've still got 3 games to Old Firm. The problem with me is this team just, they're a mismatch. I just don't see what system you could get out of this team. Okay, maybe once Cantwell comes back and Raskin, you solidify a wee bit. You maybe get a wee goal or two out of Lawrence and Cantwell. But you've still got Lammers up front, who doesn't look like he's going to score you a huge amount of goals. You've still got Dessers up front. The only one I've got a wee bit of hope for is Danilo. I think he looked good when he for that 15 minutes up at St Johnstone before his face got caved in. So we might get goals out of him when he comes back. Roof, we know what you're going to get with Roof. He's going to come back, make you think that this is him, get 3 games out of him, a couple of goals, and then he's out for another 3 months. You know what I mean? That's all you're getting. So that's my biggest problem and my biggest fear with this team. There's just not enough goals. It's just a mismatch of a team. I don't know what Beale was trying to do with these players, what system he was trying to play. And that's what Davis is going to have to try and do. He's going to have to try and get a tune out of the players that we'll all admit aren't good enough. That's what Davis, that's his job now. He's going to have to try and get a tune out of these players, even though they're not good enough. Colin, I was trying to... You've pretty much said what I was trying to say. But my point I was trying to make was that if Davis is serious about the job, he needs to implement a system that we can actually say, we can see what he's doing here. Whether it's with the players, or what's the word? If there's players that need to be replaced, at least we can say, well, that's what he's trying to do. Because at the minute, I just didn't see what your tactics are. I mean,
what I'm thinking about, like, in terms of, like, we want to see a well-coached team, we want to see good football. That's obvious. Obviously, we want that. But to me, I think that now we need leadership and we need a manager. There is a big difference, and we have found out the hard way between a manager and a coach. We've seen Michael Beale clearly was a good coach, and he had great skills and qualities in that, but he is not a manager. For me, we need someone that is a leader. Someone that can come in, command instant respect. At the moment, we've got that with Davis, so that's my kind of thinking behind it. And I know every manager should have their own philosophy of how they want to play this, that, and the next thing. But at the end of the day as well, that's why you hire coaches to coach. Now, I know obviously a manager should have the overall saying, it should be his decisions and whatnot. But for me, leave the coaches to coach and let the managers manage. That's the way that I think it should be. Sounds probably a bit too simple, but some things in life, the simpler they are, the easier it is, and the more successful it is. I mean, even guys like Pep Guardiola, who obviously get an incredible way of playing football. That guy surrounds himself with probably about 10, 20 of the most professional world class coaches in the world that implement a playing style every day. And it's something that's kind of confused me as well, the last few months or this talk about style, because since when did Rangers fans care about having a style of play? Let's be honest. Well, in my life anyway, the year we won the league and Dick Advocaat is the only 2 times that I've seen Rangers teams play good football. And to be fair,
we're winning trophies, Craig. That's the problem. We're winning trophies, so nobody bothered.
Yeah. Aye, no, you're right, and I think maybe the whole style of play thing was probably just used by people as another stick to beat Beale with, which is fair enough because that's what people doing it was terrible. But I think the whole style of play thing maybe is a wee bit sort of I think people might be taking that a wee bit too seriously because we've looked at things recently and we've not been successful. Gary, you said it earlier, 2 trophies in 11, 12 years. It's not good enough, but we'll need to see what happens. Colin, where do you think it started to go wrong for Beale? For me, it was probably just after the semi-final last year. Cup final, I maybe gave him the benefit of the doubt, even though he picked the wrong team. But for me, that semi-final against Celtic, the guys came in, he's not managed to win any of the cups, so it's what's he doing? When do you think that it started to go wrong for him?
I mean, I gave Beale a free pass from when he came in until the end of the season because of the way the situation was. I thought, as I said earlier on, I thought he bought well in January. I think it's went wrong in the pre-season. I think his signings have been really poor, and I've also heard various rumours and stuff on social media and stuff like that about one of the coaches that was sort of let go in the summer, and the players were really angry, but Beale never done anything. He wasn't getting involved, and again, it comes down. I think this comes down to a lack of leadership. And that's the thing with Beale. I don't think he's a leader, and that's the problem. I think he's good at what he does and devising a game plan and supporting the main man when he supported Gerrard. But is he a leader? No. And I think that's something that is throughout the club. There just seems to be a lack of leadership. It goes back to what I was saying earlier on. If you're in a repetitive cycle of making appointment after appointment after appointment, and you're still neck deep in the shit, then you have to start looking at the people making the decisions. To me, that's how it works. If you're failing as a club consistently, and we have, then there's a lack of leadership. And I don't think it's just on the field. I mean, how many of us are pissed off with the club in general? Just about the amount of shit that comes in your inbox about buy this, buy that, buy the next thing. And that was the sort of chat where I was yesterday in my seat in the governing year. All we get for the club is buy this, buy that, hand over money, hand over fist, give us this, give us that. For what? For the team that we're watching now. I think supporters would part with their cash a lot easier if they were seeing a style of football that they wanted to watch and enjoy, and also if there was an element of success in that, we're winning trophies and winning leagues. I disagree with you that only Dick Advocaat and who else did you say?
The year we won the league a couple of years ago.
Aye, I disagree with that. I mean, Walter Smith played some good football at times. What Walter Smith was good at was getting results when the team weren't playing well. He would kick a result at a team. But I think, especially in his first period at the club, Loudrop, Gascoigne, all that kind of stuff. Rangers played some good football. But, going back to the lack of leadership thing, that's a thing that bothers me. And it's not just the football stuff. You look at our sort of general reputation. We get a kick in all the time for the media. Reputations and fucking tatters at times with various bits and bobs. We're almost looked at as a bit of a laughing stock. And the club our PR is just horrific. And we've just never got a handle on that at all. Never. For about the last 25 years, I would say, we've struggled in that aspect, in the PR stuff. Again, it's just a lack of leadership. There's no one really there. Don't get me started on Bisgrove, because I just, there's nothing about the guy. When I see him talking, there's nothing about the guy that makes me think, I like this guy and he's going to do the best by our club. I take him as someone that's out for one thing and he's out for himself. And that's it. And he just doesn't impress me in any way whatsoever. I think he sees the support as just another way of increasing revenue at the club. And that's it. That's how I view Bisgrove. I don't see him as the type of person that we need to take us forward. But that's another thing. That's by the by. I just think throughout the club, on the park, off the park, there just seems to be a lack of leadership. You know what I mean? When you look across the road and what happens with them, the minute they get a problem, it's dealt with. Now, you could argue they've got a compliant media and all the rest of it and blah, blah, blah. That's what we need to do. We need to improve our relationship with various media outlets and all the rest of it. I know it's difficult and I know it's hard to stomach because, you see some of the stuff that goes on over the road, and there's one big thing that I'll not mention, but we all know what we're talking about here and how they've handled that and how it's been suppressed in the papers and all that kind of stuff. It's reported on, but it's not commented on. There's obviously some stuff there that makes you a bit frustrated and angry and all the rest of it, but that's an area that we need to improve on. We need to be better at that stuff. We need to be smarter. We need to be better. There needs to be stronger leadership throughout the club, in my opinion, not just on the park, not just in the dressing room and in the manager's office. Throughout the club, a good club starts from the top all the way down, and I just think it's not there at the moment, and it's not been there for a while.
I mean, Gary, Colin made a few interesting points there. I think, in terms of the fans, right, at what point do we kind of go, enough is enough? Because it's all well and good, going on Twitter, making a few comments. It's all well and good coming on here and we can ramble and this, that, and the next thing. See, at the end of the day, we still buy our season tickets, we still buy our strips, we still subscribe to Sky and whatever, and, give money through the TV deal and this, that, and the next thing. Ibrox yesterday was sold out. The team's been performing rubbish. We're miles behind Celtic at the moment. The place is still sold out. We could still sell 35,000 tickets for Livingston, Wednesday night in the League Cup when it's peeing done. We still buy my jerseys. We still buy this, that, and the next thing. I mean, at what point do the fans kind of say, and I'm not one to advocate like boycotts or this, that, and the next thing, right? But at the end of the day, if we continue to sort of just be passive and not do anything and just allow the same stuff to happen all the time, it's like, that's what I was meaning earlier in the sense. Sometimes we need to look at ourselves and say, what do we do? Like, if this next managerial appointment is wrong, and it feels like we've said this all the time, people say, if the next managerial appointment's wrong, it'll be a disaster, we need to get it right. Well, we've said that 2 times in a row now, and it's not worked out 2 times in a row, and we're still here. We're still going to get fans travelling over to Cyprus on Thursday. That support will be there at St Mirren next Sunday. The fans have always been there. They're back the club through thick and thin with their money. But at what point do fans just go, enough is enough, and we're sick and tired of this?
I don't know. That's generally, I've not got the answer for that. I'm hoping that Bennett's going to be a breath of fresh air compared to what I've had previously. I'm kind of the same as Colin regarding Bisgrove. All I want is Rangers to have the best people that we can afford in those positions. Whether that be chief executive, manager, and then number 9. But I don't know. I'm just that scared of it, to be honest. The pattern we're going is that we'll write this season off, start again next year, lose the first Old Firm game, and then we'll be back in the same position. It just feels like Groundhog Day. So I'm just, I don't know, I'm just scurred. But we generally do need to just, as you say, get it right this time. And all we can do is hope. But other than what can we do as a fan base, like protest? Does the board really care? Does the owners really care? I don't know.
Craig, I would argue that you're saying I mean, I know you're saying games are sold out and all the rest of it. I would disagree with that. There's loads of empty seats running about me at the moment. Boy behind me runs a bus. He's saying he's got spare tickets every week now. I think you're
I think the point I make with that is, like, the money's still been there. Like, we've all paid for our season tickets.
Yeah, I know. And that's the way season tickets work. You put your money up at the start. And supporters, the thing that drives supporters to buy those season tickets is fear. You fear you're going to miss out on something big and all the rest of it. So
that's the exact same with my gels as well.
Yeah, you always renew, and that's it. So that's the way that football operates now. You know, season tickets. Years ago, I can remember when I first started going to Ibrox in the early 80s. I mean, my first game, it was Morton, 1982. I think there was like 10,500 there because Rangers were really struggling at the time. You know what I mean? So fans could walk with their feet, but I still think they're doing that at the moment. You know what I mean? It's, as I say, I'm noticing empty seats within the ground at the moment. People I speak to who would go all the time, you start to hear them say, oh, maybe no go this week, blah, blah, blah. It's there. How the board and how clubs get away with it now is the money's in the bank in July, you know, because you've paid for your seat at the start. But if you look, to me, if you look around Ibrox, you can see a lot of empty seats. There's people just not turning up now.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few more yesterday, and, you know, obviously I think with the cup games anyway, they're never going to be sold out, you know, unless it's like Celtic or somebody like that. But at the same time, it's like, might have been seeing a lot of empty seats yesterday, but I was seeing a lot of people cutting about with this new fourth kit or whatever one it is we've released now.
Yeah.
You know, people still went to Edmondson House before the game, had their beers or whatever. People were still going in there after the game, even after we get gubbed. In fact, that's probably like the weirdest thing about it, right? It's like you'll probably have people that like left as soon as that second Aberdeen went in and be like that, I'm done, I'm finished with them, blah, 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 blah. And then 2 minutes later probably went into Edmondson House, had a couple of pints and gave them more money.
Yeah.
But it's just, I really don't know. I think maybe eventually something will happen. You seen the Union Bears yesterday respond to the players when they sort of went down and done a round of applauses after the games and stuff like that. And, you know, the atmosphere yesterday, the word gets used a lot, but toxic is the only way to describe it. Dessers, I mean, you know, I'm not saying that people shouldn't have done this, but I have never, ever in my life, hand on heart, seen or heard a Rangers player be booed as he was subbed. First off, when he gets subbed, and then when the announcer said his name, the boos get even worse for him. Yeah. And it's like, I've never seen that before. After the Celtic game, it was bad. After yesterday, it was obviously bad again. But then it's like, I mentioned it earlier, you're just scared of whatever in the moment, do you know what I mean? It's like, I think the whole situation in terms of commercially, you're right, Colin, it's fear. You know, like my deals, that's the reason that people, even though there was only 35,000 at the Livingston game, right, there was probably still about, I would say maybe 40,000 plus tickets that were sold, because you're getting guys that have just bought tickets that comes automatically off that your card just to get the MyGers points, do you know what I mean? Because you don't need to scatter. It's not one of the ones like the cup games, as soon as you've bought your ticket, you get the points. It's not like the league games where you need to actually physically go or put your ticket in seat sub or something like that to get the points. So, I don't know. We'll need to wait and see what happens with that.
Do you want to know what I think pisses a lot of people off? Is that, see, every time we get a new appointment, whether it be chief executive, director of football, all that kind of stuff, it's the same sound bites, it's the same, but we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and they talk about these pillars, and they talk about like scouting, they talk about modernising the club, but nothing changes. Absolutely nothing changes. We sign all these players, and we're talking, we're going to sell them for profits and whatever. Nobody will buy our players now. But we've spent about £15 million roughly on 3 strikers this year, and you wouldn't see any of them as the first name on the sheet. But on a Saturday, our goalkeeper is probably our best player this season, and our biggest goal threat is still our right back. It's absolutely crazy. We hear the same carry on every year and nothing changes. It's like the same pish time and time again. And that's what's just frustrating fans now.
I mean, I suppose you can argue that, you know, there has been some stuff in the background, infrastructure and all that around the stadium and, you know, the training facility that needed to be done. So some money needed to go to that. But I agree, you know, it is the same sort of quotes that you get about what they're going to do and blah, blah, blah. And as you say, Gary, it's just the same, you know, we're still looking at Tav for goals. I've still got hopes for Daniil. I've got to say, I think he might score goals in this country. But Dessers, I don't agree with Burnham, by the way, because my argument always is, if someone signs for Rangers that isn't good enough, it's no their fault that they're not good enough. It's no their fault that at Rangers signed that player. Someone thought that player was good enough for Rangers and signed them. As long as they're given 100%, I'll kind of say, right, I'll accept that they're not good enough, but if they're given, and I think Dessers is, you know, I wouldn't say that he's not trying. But he's obviously, what we've seen so far, he's not good enough. He's just not good enough to play for Rangers. So it is frustrating. There's no doubt about it. You know, you're relying on guys that aren't good enough. And as you say, I mean, obviously it wasn't a £15 million net spend. We've let a lot of players go. But I mean, one of the biggest things that's pissed me off this summer is we let, you know, Kent walked out the door, Morelos walked out the door, and Kamara walked out the door for a total of $5 million. You know what I mean? I mean, those were the sort of players that 3-4 years ago we were talking about, when they move on, we'll get a profit from them and all that kind of stuff. And they've walked out the door for next to nothing. And it's just, okay, we've made some decent money with Patterson, and who's the boy that went to Ajax? Bassey. You know what I mean? And there has been a couple of good sales recently, but we keep on getting told that this is the model. We're going to buy cheap, develop, sell for a profit, and start the whole process again. And I just don't see any evidence of that whatsoever. Quite the opposite. We're spending big money on players. It was $6 million on Danilo. He's going to have to score a lot of goals for us to get a profit on that. You know what I mean? To move him on at some point in the future. So, as you say, Gary, we hear all these sound bites about what the plan is. It's going to be data driven and this, that, and the next thing. And there's absolutely zero evidence of it. We seem to hold on to players because I just don't think there's belief that when we move them on, we're going to replace them like for like. We're not going to bring in the same quality. And so what happens is you hold on to these players for too long and miss the point when you should have sold them. We should have sold Kamara about 2 years ago when he played at the Euros in 2021. He had a cracking Euros. Would have easily got about 10 million, 15 million for him at that point because he was just playing so well. But we hold on to him. Things go downhill. You know, I don't know what happened between him and Gio, and he never recovers, and he walks out the door for 5 million. We hold on to Morelos for far too long. You know, okay, at times we were trying to get the valuation that we wanted for him, but he walks out the door for nothing. You know, I mean, to buy someone for 7 million and hold on to him for that length of time and then let him walk out the door on a free it goes against everything that they say they're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be bringing in cheap, selling high, making a profit, but they're not. The way they're making a profit is by selling us 4 strips and Myers points and the museum and Edmondson House and all that kind of stuff. They're not doing what they said they were going to do in terms of the football model. That's just not happening, or it's not happening on a wide enough scale.
Yeah, I mean, see on that, like the player trading thing as well, like I know the Kent Morelos one's a real bugbear for people and it's like fair enough, but at the same time, you know, you do need people and clubs to actually be interested in these players as well. Like, I don't see any evidence of, you know, people coming in for, you know, Kent Morelos recently anyway, like during the last couple of years at the club. There was always links with Kent going to Leeds and stuff like that, but I think they were basically offering us what we paid for Kent. And, you know, you shouldn't be selling, I know it's bad losing them on a free, but you shouldn't be selling them for like £7 million in like 2021 when he's still got 2 years left in his contract and stuff like that. When you signed him for that amount of money. The Morelos one, the only reasonable offer that we actually got for Morelos was the Lille one, which was I think 17 or 18 million quid. That was in January 2020. Now I will always maintain, and I'll die on this hill, that, you know, we should not have sold Morelos at that point. And, you know, I'm glad we didn't, because you can't sell your best player in January with 6 months to go you can't do it. And at the time, it was incredible. That was, your sort of peak Rangers version of Morelos. Obviously, the second half of that season, it was crap, and then we came back, and it was good to really win the league. But you never really get back to those levels. But at the same time, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? We can say we should have done this, we should have done that, but I just think you can't sell your best player. When you've got 6 months of the season to go, you're top of the league. You've just beat Celtic at Parkhead, and then after that, the bids that were coming in for him, they just weren't what we wanted for him. And then it becomes a bit balanced, doesn't it? Because you're kind of like, well, we obviously want to make money on these players, but you need to sell them at the right price as well, Colin.
I'd slightly disagree with you, Craig. I think if you're the football operation of the club is operating well, the minute you get a good deal for a player, and 17 million would have been a brilliant deal for Morelos, you move them on, because you take a chunk of that money and you buy the replacement. You know what I mean? That's how I view it. I just think we're too precious at times, and I think that shower across the road are better at this than us. The minute they get top dollar on the table for a player, they just move them on. That's it. He's going, because they're confident enough that they can bring someone in that's of a similar quality. Now, they don't always work. We've seen that, especially in the 55 season. They signed a few duds. But more often than not, when they get a good deal for a player, they let them go. You know what I mean? You could argue that Jota was their best player last season. They didn't have any qualms about letting him go in the summer there. The money was right. He's away. So, to me, the reason Rangers don't let these players go at the maximum time is because the football side of the business isn't operating the way it should. We're looking at it and going, well, we don't know who to bring in to replace this guy. And to me, that's the problem. It's if that whole side of the business was slicker and better ran, you would already have a rough idea of who you want to bring in and replace someone. So when the offer comes in, you then make a move for that player. And if that deal, that 17 million or whatever that was offered for Morelos, that gives you money to play with. That gives you a couple of million, 2-3 million of that money to say, right, let's go out and buy a replacement. And another thing we're going to have to stop doing is ignoring, players on our own doorstep, boys like Lewis Ferguson and all that kind of stuff. We need to stop this snobbery that we seem to have when it comes to decent Scottish boys that are kicking about. If they're good enough, get them signed. That's the way I see it.
And I definitely agree with you on that one. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it, Gary? It's like we're talking about all these pillars and departments and stuff like that. I mean, when you run a football club and you don't get the footballing department right, you're kind of on a hiding to nothing, aren't you? It's kind of like, Beale's time at Rangers sort of summed up yesterday, in the sense that, if you don't take your chances and you don't defend, you don't do the basics right, you're going to get found out, you're going to get punished, and we've been found out too many times, I think. I mean, I suppose it's a fair point you've made, Colin, about, that in terms of selling them at their peak value, and that, for me, goes back to leadership, because I know for a fact as well that the year we won the league, a lot of people say, we should have broke up the squad and this, that, and the next thing. At the same time, Steven Gerrard didn't want to sell those players, but should that not be a time when the board say, no, at the end of the day, we've got a way of working around our business, you need to follow that. We understand you're the manager, but as soon as we get a bid in for a player of a certain value, he needs to go. And, I wouldn't have agreed we sell Morelos in January 2020 with that bid, but at the same time, at least it would have shown a wee bit of consistency on the board side in terms of the message that they're sending out. Because if that's what they want to do, they need to actually follow up and do it. So at least they would have been consistent on the messaging. I mean, Gary, in terms of where we go now, obviously it's Davis, it's in the now. I mean, I don't really want to get into talking about replacements, because like Colin said earlier, it's like, who is there, like, realistic targets? I couldn't name one, person that, is, the standout candidate. There's people there that I would like, or, people that I prefer over others, but there's not a standout candidate. One thing for me that will be interesting to see, and we touched on it earlier, do they bring in a director of football first before they bring in a new manager? So what's your thoughts on that, Gary, and what's your thoughts on the sort of whole director of football debate in general?
I think director of football is the way it should be. We've seen there with other managers who's basically called the shots for his signings, and I wouldn't say anybody, as I say, other than the goalkeepers, set the head on fire this season. Of course, there should be a balance. Like a manager might know a few players, blah, blah, blah. But we've got to have a system in place that's, as we've just kind of touched on, if we want to have a model where we sell players, we should have a list of 5 possible replacements for any player, whether it's Tavernier or whoever it may be, that if a crazy offer comes in, you say, yep, that's our model, we're selling them, and then there's their 5 replacements. But that's got to be led by a director of football. It can't be, football's too big now, it can't be run by one guy. So to answer your question, yes, I think there should be a director of football. If we've not been signing people out, then that's a serious failure in leadership, because if we're all being honest with ourselves, we've probably seen this coming. If not for the Celtic game, certainly the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I'd like to see director of football go in, but the thing is, it all depends on how Steve Davis performs, because if, say, loses on Thursday and then drops points next Sunday, the board's got to have a massive decision to make.
Yeah, that's true. Colin, what's your thoughts on the whole sort of director of football debate?
Well, it comes down to the whole philosophy that the club are saying that they're trying to achieve, that there's a trading model in place, right? So again, that model is you bring in young talent at a cheap price, develop it and sell it. So if that's your model, then you need someone to lead that. And those are the sort of discussions that managers should be having when we're appointing them. When we're approaching them to say, would you want to be a manager of this club? You say to them, by the way, this is our model. And if an offer comes in for a player, if it's of the value that we're looking for, he's going, and that's it. That's the model that you're signing up to, and that's it. So that's, to me, those conversations should have been had with Steven Gerrard at the time. If we get a certain bid that we can't knock back, we're not knocking it back, but you'll get a significant amount of that money to then go and find his replacement. But Gary's right, the whole thing, a club should have a network of sort of agents, scouts, all that kind of thing. We should have a database of players that we want to sign. And then when we've got our squad, and the majority of them are of a certain age, obviously you need a bit of experience in the squad and all the rest of it, you've got to have a spine. But the majority of that squad are of a certain age where they can be developed and sold on. That's your model. And as Gary says, you have replacements, ready-made replacements sitting there, that if an offer comes in for a player that's too much to knock back, then you don't knock it back. You accept that offer and you look at the players that are out there that you have identified as possible replacements. That's how it should work. It has to be ruthless and all the rest of it, but that's, if we're going to become a more profitable club and organisation through, player trading, and this is what the club have been saying for years, this is what they're looking at, this is the area of the business that they need to strengthen, then that's what you need to do. There's no, Stevie G doesn't want to sell Morelos now because, no, it's 17 million and we can't afford to knock that back. We've identified replacements and we'll spend a bit of the money that we're getting on that replacement and we move on. That's it. We just need to be more ruthless. If the club's going to talk the talk on this, if they're saying that's what they're going to do and that's an ambition, well, they need to start doing it, because they've not been doing it so far. And that's why Kamara and Ken and Morelos walked out the door for next to nothing in the summer. 3 players who we all thought, especially 2 of them, Kamara cost us 50 grand, and Morelos, we always looked at they 2 at one point as we're going to get good money for them when they move on, and we didn't. And that's a failure at sort of boardroom and leadership level, because they've not taken the money at the right time.
Yeah. Oh, well, Gary,
can I just come in there again? I know we're running over time, but see, as well as transfers, I also think that should come into the formation, with style of play. Like, a director of football should be using his team to identify certain players that fit a club system, if you want to call it that. So us signing a certain style of player for a manager, and then maybe doesn't work out or successful, and then he gets poached by a bigger team. Then we bring in somebody who's says, I want to play 5 at the back instead of 4-3-3, or know what I mean? But to be bringing people in saying, this is the style of football we want at Rangers, and then go and get a manager to do that, not just a name, not just whoever, but it's got to fit the Rangers philosophy, if you want to call it that. And I think going for Gerrard to Van Bronckhorst was a different style, and then you've got Beale coming in, who's wanting to play 2 up front and things like that, which we've not played for probably since McCoist, maybe. I think it's just this, we're a bit too making up as we go along kind of thing, and I really think we need to settle on a Rangers philosophy and then say that's what we're doing.
Yeah, you're right, and you're right, Ella, when you use the term scurriled. That's, I think, what everybody's feeling this Sunday night, but we'll leave it there, guys. Thanks very much to the viewers at home for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday to review Stephen Davis's first game as the Rangers manager. I never thought I'd say that. You know, you're getting old when, like, the players that you grew up watching are starting to become the manager of the team you support. But there we go. So we'll be back on Friday at 9 o'clock to review that and also preview the St Mirren fixture on Sunday as well. So all that's left for me now to do is thank my guests. Colin, thanks for coming on, mate.
Cheers.
Not a problem. Gary, thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks very much, mate.
No worries, and thanks to the guests at home. Good night, guys.